1941-1945. 22 research institutes and 31 higher education institutions were evacuated to Kazakhstan. Construction of the Kazakh State Academic Opera and Ballet Theatre, named after Abay, was completed in 1941. During the war, the Republic became the center of the cultural and scientific community. July the 25th, 1942. I don't know why the war is not over yet. I'm waiting for my dad to come back. It seems to me that he has been absent for many years. I cannot sleep at night thinking how and where he is now. It is hard for Mom as well. She always works. Today we went to collective farm fields together. I worked hard. I'm so tired. But if it helps our victory, as adults say, I will agree to work day and night. Because there, at the war, my dad is helping to defeat these fascists. Of course, it's harder for him.
В 1943 году меня призвали в ряды советской армии. Если я помню, призвали в сентябре месяце.
I joined the Soviet Army in September 1943. We were taken to the train and left. I came to the village of Zvat in Pukovitsky district, Minsk region. We were 18-year-old boys. Germans were next to us. We surrounded a very large German group in that section of the front. They were drunk and tried to break through. They constantly bombed and shot at us. And mortars and machine guns were everywhere. And so we got into that mess, but we managed to turn the tide and took the offensive. People wonder if it is scary to be at war. It's hard to tell. One should experience it himself to understand it, how scary it really is. During the war, people stayed humans as they were before the tragic day of June the 22nd, 1941. Amidst stress situations, heavy fights, everyone needed their happy pre-war lives. The Soviet Union conducted massive campaigns and propaganda in order to encourage soldiers and improve their focus. Famous frontline flyers, posters, and of course front brigades. Everything was made to provide emotional support for soldiers. The Kazakh cultural figures also made their contribution. Many of them went to the front line to raise the spirits of the soldiers. They gave concerts on makeshift stages. I can name artists such as Manabek Yazhanov and Jibek Yelebekov. Sharajin Kulova was the first who went to the front line. The soldiers of Stalingrad and the Kursk salient really enjoyed and remembered Rosa Baglanova's song "Ah, Samara Gorodok."
Что касается Куляш Байсеитовой, то известно ее письмо-обращение, в котором она говорит...
As for Kulyash Bayseitova, we know about her open letter with words, "What can I do for the front line?" She said that she was very happy when she joined the front brigade. She was member of that brigade for 45 days and she gave 67 concerts. They really were in the front line. During the war, artists gave 1,350,000 concerts and creative performances in almost all military units. It should be noted that culture and science were given due consideration despite the martial law in Kazakhstan. Therefore, during the first stage of evacuation to the Republic, scientific and cultural institutions also became significant along with industrial ones. In August 1941, the Mosfilm studio was relocated to Almaty. About 500 employees of Lenfilm studio arrived in September. From the first days of the war, the Studio of Chronicles and Documentary Films of the Republic started producing a short film series. And in November 1941, the Central United Film Studios was established as a result of the merger of Almaty Film Studio and evacuated Mosfilm and Lenfilm Studios. From 1941 to 1945, the film studio released 80% of all domestic film production. That means that 4 out of 5 films of the country were made in Kazakhstan. Such films as Secretary of the District Committee, Zoya, In the Name of Motherland, and Invincible were released in Soviet Union, as well as Kazakh documentary films, including the 8th Guards Division, For the Front, The Sounds of Dombura, and others.
Слушай фронт! Слушай фронт! Говорит Алмата! Говорит...
Attention, the front line. Attention, Almaty is speaking. Almaty is speaking. We begin the radio program for soldiers, commanders, commissars and political workers of the 8th Guards Division named after Major General Panfilov. Dear heroes, your fellow countrymen from Kazakhstan, as well as all Soviet people, are proud of you and send you their warm greetings.
Горячий привет!
The filming usually took place at night because the factory needed electricity during the day, and many filmmakers visited Shaya Kmetov at his house. Sergei Eisenstein also came to us. Once he presented a storyboard for Ivan the Terrible to my dad, and Nikolai Cherkasov, who played Ivan the Terrible, once joked, "Jumabai Shaya Kmetoli, please come to the pavilion tomorrow. I will conquer Kazan tomorrow." Archival documents of the Republic proved that there was an enormous organizational work of all local authorities. The management team had to deal with the placement of evacuated enterprises, institutions and people, as well as to launch facilities as soon as possible, create living conditions, organize an uninterrupted work process and of course take into account the needs of the population. It should be noted that the workflow process practically did not stop in any area. That was the reason why there were so many outstanding achievements in Kazakhstan between 1941 and 1945. As evidence, I can show one archival document. This is a letter from academician Satbayev, who at that time was the chairman of the branch of the USSR Academy of Sciences, to Chairman Ondasynov, Council of People's Commissars. According to your invitation, on October the 23rd, academicians Bach, Stern and Borisyak with their families, a total of 14 people, will come from Burabai to Almaty. Academician Fisenko, together with academician Tikov, created the observatory that now is located in the Alatau Mountains. The military situation needed special conditions. Many developments, inventions and discoveries were made in the defense industry. Due to occupation of the western part of the Union, the country was in dire need of new deposits and materials. Kazakhstan was the main strategic point in this regard as well. Together with the evacuated scientific intellectuals, Kazakh scientists made their invaluable contribution to the common cause.
Поскольку Сатпаев был ученым,
Since Satbayev was a scientist, his main merit was creation of forecasting and meteorological maps. He defined where and what deposits should be developed. As history showed, all forecasts were confirmed. During the years of war, the fight for victory was underway simultaneously on two fronts. One was in the home front, where everything from industrial enterprises, scientific institutions, and every human worked non-stop. And the other one was at the front line, where our soldiers advanced forward without sparing themselves, losing friends and relatives.
Вот когда мы первый раз попали в деревню-то, у нас были три брата. Все они
Three brothers served with me. All of them were my fellow countrymen from Novonezhinsk. It was 20 kilometers from us. Two Nikolais and one Vasily.
Николая и один Василий. Так вот, одного Николая, одного Василия прямым попаданием, понимаете, снаряда разорвало на куски совершенно.
So a shell tore one of Nikolai's and Vasily to pieces. We always used to be together. For example, we studied machine gun together at school. So we collected their remains in a box from shells and buried them after the battle. After this first fight, hair on my temples turned gray.
Вот после этого первого боя я стал сидеть. Виски седые у меня стали.
August 1942. Somehow, I remember the same moment quite often. We had guests. Everyone had fun, and Dad proudly said, "Now my son will tell the poem." I did it half-heartedly, but everyone clapped. Probably right now I am missing this fun and really want a holiday. I'm ready to stand on a chair all day and tell poems. If only everyone were nearby. It's good that there are still daytime children's camps in the Federation Park. Jibek and I go there when we have free time. Despite the difficulties of wartime, leisure activities were organized for the population of Kazakhstan who worked in the home front. Evacuated cultural institutions joined already existing facilities in the Republic and staged new joint musical and theatrical performances. Of course, the main theme of that time was war, but the world classics were popular too. It is also known that in the year of 1943, the famous ballerina Galina Ulanova arrived at Abay Opera and Ballet Theatre. There is a journal with a list of performances of 1943 in the archives of Abay Opera and Ballet Theatre. Information of each performance and premiere was written in that journal. For example, on June the 27th, there was the premiere of the play Giselle, presented by the Order of Lenin State Academic Opera and Ballet Theatre, named after Kirov. The performance was resumed and produced by Galina Ulanova in Almaty. Considering the mentality of the Republic's population, in October 1943, the government of Kazakhstan adopted a special decree on the organization of regional and republican ITIS. The traditional genre of folk songwriting, like no other, could convey the necessary information in an accessible manner. On December the 4th, 1943, the first Republican ITIS of folk Arkens took place in Almaty. This significant event became a pearl of the Soviet propaganda. After that, the famous artists traveled all over regions with performances for home front workers. The evacuation of artists, intellectuals, of scientific and educational institutions was organized well. All factors were taken into account. In the first months of the war, scientific enterprises were evacuated to Shymkent, including the Institute of World Economy and the Institute of Architecture of the USSR. It must be mentioned that Chuguyev Military Aviation School was relocated to Shymkent, and Ivan Kozhedub was one of its instructors. The flight school operated in Shymkent until May 1945. During all years of the war, the school trained 2,500 fighter pilots. More than 160 of them were awarded the title of the Hero of the Soviet Union. In the period from 1941 to 1942, several military schools were relocated to the city of Aktobe and its region, including the Borisoglavsk Red Banner Military Aviation School named after Chkalov. Personnel who were trained in Kazakhstan immediately went to the front, where fights for life and the homeland were ongoing every day.
За эту реку, значит, за форсирование реки, мы как пулеметный расчет, значит, ударили.
During the crossing of the river, our machine gun crew kept the bridgehead. I was awarded the Order of the Red Star for that. I met my brother in Vilnius. He was born in 1924, and I was born in 1926.
Мы несколько дней там побыли вместе, значит, а потом там произошло, что немцы, не немцы, а диверсанты взорвали в Вильнюс целый эшелон авиационных бомб. Там эшелон с ранеными стоял.
We stayed there for several days. And then the German saboteurs detonated a whole train of military bombs in Vilnius. The wounded who were in the train were torn to pieces. And the brothers' barracks were nearby, on 5 Bolshaya Pogulyanka Street. I was scared for him, ran there from our unit, but they told me that he left for the front the day before.
Он вчера уехал на фронт опять.
There was a war in the life of Mikhail Didenko. He remembers every day he spent at the front and sees some moments in his dreams. He walked his path of glory and returned to his homeland as the commander of a machine gun crew. Already in peacetime, he rose to the rank of colonel. Today, his home front is his beloved wife, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren.
Патриотизм развит был. Патриотизм, любовь к родине развита. Вот я иногда спрашиваю...
As for patriotism, sometimes they ask me, why did you return to Kazakhstan? I was offered to stay in Moscow and in other cities. They offered me the apartment and everything else. I said, I'll go to Kazakhstan. I was born where Shokan Walikhanov was born. This is our motherland. Patriotism and love for the motherland motivated the people of Kazakhstan on the battlefields and as well as in the home front. Everyone made their contribution. Our compatriot Kajimukan Munait Pasuli performed in villages at the time of the war. The famous wrestler at the age of 70 showed power tricks and donated the collected money to the defense fund for the purchase of an aircraft, which was named after another legendary Kazakh, Amankildi Imanov. Our fellow countryman Shalabayev flew for 2 years on the plane that was built with the money of Kajimukan Munait Pasuli. Everyday letters come from the front. When the boys and I see the postman, we run and ask, for whom? I know for sure that I need to take only triangles. If it is just a piece of paper, it means it is a death notification. I hate it. This means tears and sorrow will come to someone's house. And for all of us, it's too hard. In our free time, we try to invent something to help the front somehow. We decided to send gifts to our fighters. We make gifts from whatever we find and send them. I dream that Dad also gets a present. That makes him smile, even sometimes. The chronicles of those years captured everything that happened on the battlefields and in the home front. They made it to the descendants because of the work of military cameramen. 243 people worked in the war zone. 34 of them died. Among them, there were citizens of Kazakhstan. 37-years-old Boris Pumpansky died in 1944 when he was filming a report about the work of field mail in the Carpathians. In the archive, there is a documentary film, The Last Frame of the War, filmed by Igor Savin at the Kazakh Telefilm Studio in 1990. This film is an interview with military newsreel writer Yakov Smirnov. He's a very humble person, yet an honored worker of culture of Kazakhstan, an order bearer who received the Order of the World War II, Order of the Red Star. He is a graduate of Gerasimov Institute of Cinematography. He graduated from the institute in 1937 and left Almaty for the front in 1941. He went through the whole war holding a camera till the capture of Berlin. This film shows the chronicle where Yakov Smirnov talked about the moment he filmed the signing of the German instrument of surrender. Led by Keitel, generals entered the room. They were standing upright, just like all Germans. Zhukov read them the surrender and invited them to sign. It was a moment when I filmed Zhukov as he signed the surrender. At the appointed hour, representatives of the Soviet and Allied command forces entered the room. The signing took place in the presence of many representatives of the front command forces and guests of the Allied powers. Kazakhstan's Central State Archive of film and photo documents, as well as sound recordings, stores 40,000 unique storage units related to the history of our country. Every page is meaningful and important. The name of Natalia Sats is also significant for the people of Kazakhstan.
В 1944 году, когда приехала уже Наталья Ильинична Сац, она обратилась с просьбой...
Natalia Sats expressed the idea of creating a theater for children in 1944. Everyone, of course, was in shock. It was the hardest time. And one might say that her incredible perseverance, her energy, completely made that happen. The building in the center of Almaty was given to the new theater by the decision of the government of the Kazakh Republic. The reconstruction and rehearsals began in the same time. The theater opened its doors with the first play of Little Red Riding Hood on November 7th, 1945. Later, when re-evacuation happened, a lot of equipment of factories and plants, as well as many artists, stayed here. It definitely contributed to the development of science and culture in Kazakhstan. In particular, if I talk about science, there was only one institute before the war, but after 4 years of the war, there were 18 institutes in Kazakhstan. The number of scientists and scientific works increased 8 times. Evacuated universities did not stop teaching students. 900 students graduated between 1941 and 1942. The evacuation of the scientific and cultural institutions, as well as intellectuals, to Kazakhstan was an important stage of the war period. Thanks to the Republic, the powerful potential of this sphere worked uninterruptedly. The people of Kazakhstan did everything for the front and for the victory. How the country experienced this period? Who were the people who gave us a peaceful sky? Look for answers in the project Our Common Victory, to make everyone know, remember and honor. I am Jambil, the banner of country's combating song, that the war storm hadn't torn from the soldiers' hands. I am the defender of Moscow, the 28 heroes. I am Kazakh to Ligen, Aliyah and Banchuk. Their names are my passport, known nationwide. Their feet tipped the victory scale. Day and night, working hard, it was me, the Kazakh, who'd costed 9 bullets of 10. That legacy's all mine. The conquered back freedom and the triumph of blistering days and sleepless nights. across the country, you will not find a people that I couldn't hold, my sisters and brothers.